Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of Talking Stuff, the Ohio State Recruiting Podcast, brought to you by Lettermen Row and our good friends at Buyers Auto. If you're buying an auto, go to buyersauto.com. Check them out, their inventory anywhere around Columbus. George Kaufman, one of the guys over there, great guy, one of our good friends at Lettermen Row. And again, coming through and sponsoring this episode of Talking Stuff, I'm Jeremy Birmingham. On the other line with me, as usual, is Spencer Holbrook. And Spencer, someone said in a comment the other day that we sound like our banter is forced.
Really?
Yeah. Can you believe that?
No, I think we're pretty natural with
I
it.
think what it is that people don't understand that my natural way is extremely awkward and therefore puts you and whomever I'm speaking with also in an awkward position.
Berm, if you're not making a pun, you're being awkward. That's just
right.
how it is.
That's right. And I want to really continue to work on that. And I appreciate every day the help that you give me and the people in the comments.
The very gracious YouTube commenters we have.
Yeah, I find that they're all generally pretty nice. A lot of really, constructive thoughts and processes, criticisms that are fair and balanced.
And then every once in a while, there's the guy that calls us all fat.
Yeah, I mean, whatever. I could stand to lose a few pounds. It's not even it's not like a secret to me. I know that. I know I could stand to lose a few pounds. Anyway, Spencer, we're not going to talk about my weight or your weight or our YouTube commenters anymore, who we do love and appreciate you taking time to watch and listen.
We do love them.
Here's the thing, though. It's funny because people think like we're, like you'd be mad about that. But like, I'm glad people, want to listen and watch, and I appreciate it. But, maybe let's just ELE, everybody love everybody.
Yeah. What do they want to hear us talk about today, Berm?
Well, we're going to talk stuff. I mean, obviously, we're talking about running backs. We never stop talking about running backs. We should rename the show to Talking Stuff About Running Backs, because that's all we ever talk about.
I think we'll still talk about the 2021 running back class in 2024.
No, I mean, we haven't stopped talking about 2020 yet, and that class is all signed and sealed and delivered. So I guess it's only fair that we look ahead and think about how we can talk about 2021 by the time 2030 rolls around. But this weekend, this episode of Talking Stuff, we at least have like tangible things to talk about. Donovan Edwards made his, 7th visit to Ohio State on Friday. Spencer, here's the thing. When people make these visits, like, I don't know necessarily that people are expecting like huge news to come out of it. Like if a kid commits, like obviously that's we kind of have an idea if it's going to happen or not, based on conversation leading up to the visit. But that was never the case with this visit for Edwards. I think that the timing of the visit combined with the run on the crystal balls that we talked about 2 weeks ago made people think like maybe that was going to happen. That's really never been in the plan for Donovan Edwards. The goal here for Ohio State and him is the same. It's to continue to keep building what they've been building. Ohio State has made him darn sure that he's the priority for them and has been for the last 2 years. I talked to Ronald Bellamy, his coach at West Bloomfield in Michigan, a guy who played at Michigan. They're not hurrying anything along here. This is a process that may be closer to finish than it is begun for Edwards, but it's certainly not close to over, despite the fact that I think right now Ohio State does lead in the recruitment.
Well, I think the first time you published a YouTube video about Donovan Edwards was in 2018. So, this process is probably a little closer to finish than it is beginning. But by all accounts, it was a good visit, and the Buckeyes are in pretty good standing right now. But, they were in good standing with other running backs, like we said, in 2020, and things didn't pan out. So, I would feel very confident if I was Ohio State right now, because you know what position you've put yourself in, and that's really all you can control, right?
Exactly. And the thing is, I mean, I talked to a couple different sources around the Buckeyes program, and the response was pretty much the exact same no matter who I talked to. And I guess that's probably on purpose. But the response is everything is going very well. The relationship between Edwards and Ohio State is very strong. They feel confident about where they are. But they realize that anything can happen in recruiting. Until a kid is committed, until a kid is signed, there is no reason to get over the moon excited, especially when not only are you recruiting a kid from Michigan who Michigan not just wants but needs in their class of 2021, but Alabama's in Georgia, LSU, Georgia, Oklahoma, all these other schools are involved. And you look around, and I mean, Tony Alford is a very well respected running back coach and a guy that has the best relationship with Edwards of anybody, according to Donovan himself. But what Del McGee has done down there at Georgia with the running back recruiting is very obvious and well known. Then you look at what's happening at LSU. They now have Kevin Falk as their running backs coach. You look at Oklahoma with DeMarco Murray as their running backs coach. Like, there's some dynamic pieces in play here. And as long as Donovan Edwards is going to continue to explore his options and take a look around the country, at any moment things can shift from Ohio State being in the lead to Ohio State not being in the lead. I mean, 3 months ago, Ohio State was not, according to most people, the team to beat. So what happened in the last 3 months? I mean, nothing really changed. It's just a matter of Ohio State being more consistent and Tony Alford and Ryan Day being more thorough in the recruiting effort than I think Jim Harbaugh and Jay Harbaugh are being.
Yeah, that would make sense, right? I mean, you can make up ground in recruiting. It's not the end all be all after guys take visits or after guys take visits elsewhere. And I think we'll get into that a little later. You can always make up ground in recruiting. It's just about putting yourself in the position and letting everything play out. You have to it's almost one of those things. Recruiting's crazy like this, where you just put yourself, you give yourself the best chance you think you have to win in football games, but also in recruiting. And after that, you let everything else fall into place. And Ohio State's putting themselves in a really good position right now with Donovan Edwards. They posted him, like you said, 6 or 7 times. They know what they're doing, and they know that they're doing it the right way, or the way that they think is the right way. And you just have to kind of let everything else play out. And I think it's going to be hard for Ohio State fans over the next couple months, when we talk about running backs so much, to be patient. But at this point, it's one of those moments in the recruiting process where you almost have to be patient because this guy's about to take visits elsewhere.
Yeah, and I mean, I said last week that I thought that you're looking at a summertime decision for Edwards. I think that holds true. But the next few months are going to be up and down, and you're going to hear about him visiting 1,000 places and see cool pictures everywhere, and hear about how he's interested in this program or that program. Recruiting comes down to comfort in relationships every single time. So right now, the comfort in the relationships with Donovan Edwards is best at Ohio State. Now, that there is no doubt that can change, but there's also no doubt right now in my mind that is the case. So as one of the top 2 or 3 running backs on the Ohio State recruiting board, Donovan Edwards is obviously very important because Ohio State wants 2 running backs in the class of 2021, as we have discussed at length. But the other 2 guys who I think are in that top 3, Evan Pryor from Charlotte, North Carolina, and Travion Henderson from Hopewell, Virginia, both those guys are going to visit over the next month. If something goes haywire and each of those 2 want to commit to Ohio State, then Donovan Edwards won't have a spot. So anything can happen. I'm not suggesting that will happen. I'm saying that Ohio State wants to take 2 of those 3 guys if they can get lucky enough to do so. And if Donovan Edwards wants to be the guy, there's things he has to pay attention to as well.
Yeah, he's going to have to keep his eyes out for Ohio State. And that's probably a good thing, right? Not really to put pressure on a kid, but to make sure that he knows, like, hey, there's other guys that are interested.
Yeah, there's got to be options. I mean, the school can't – we saw a last year with the Bijan Robinson thing last summer. There's this idea that they put all their eggs in one basket. And when the basket overturned, all of a sudden you're like left holding the bag going, oh, crap, now what? And then it took 4 months for Ohio State to recover to get back to a spot where they felt comfortable enough taking a commitment. So, that's why these visits are important, because they're getting a barometer for the Buckeyes coaching staff to see exactly where they stand. I mean, there's no pressure on Donovan Edwards to commit when he's on campus, but there's certainly going to be a conversation from Ohio State that says, hey, we would like to know kind of what your plan is. And that's why these trips are important, because Ohio State knows that Evan Pryor is going to be on campus next weekend. And Evan Pryor has said over and over to anyone who will ask him that his intention is to be committed by April. Now, he's not hard and fast with a date, but with an upcoming visit to Ohio State, a recent visit to North Carolina, a trip coming up to Georgia, there's all these things in play here that you really have to keep an eye on when it comes to Evan Pryor. Today, North Carolina added another commitment. They're up to the 4th ranked class in the class of 2021. They flipped Drake May, the quarterback who was committed to Alabama. They flipped him the other day. His family is very closely tied in with North Carolina athletics, and it was a surprise, I guess, in the fact that you flipped him from Bama. But knowing that Bama has Bryce Young, who they signed in the 2020 class, and he's expected to be basically a 3-year starter in Tuscaloosa, it makes sense for a guy like May to come in knowing that Sam Howell would only be there for 1 more year after him when he arrives. But that's all blah, 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 right? What is the fact is North Carolina fans, media is now suddenly feeling pretty confident about where they stand with Evan Pryor. Some crystal balls have come in Evan Pryor to North Carolina direction. The guys on Rivals.com down in the Southeast, like Chad Simmons and stuff, very well-respected guys down there, believe that he's going to end up at North Carolina. And I'm just going to come right out and say it. If Evan Pryor returns to Ohio State next weekend and doesn't commit somewhere before then, he's not going to end up anywhere other than Ohio State. I just don't see it happening.
Wow, that's a pretty bold
proclamation. Bold. Speaking of bold,
funny.
Go ahead.
Oh
no, go.
It's funny because I love watching Evan Pryor's huddle highlights, and I love watching Donovan Edwards. And if you told me to try and place them 1-2 and who I would rather see in the Scarlet and Gray, I wouldn't know who to choose. I think they're both dynamic backs who can do incredible things on the football field and can start from day one. So, this next week is just as important as this week. We've talked ad nauseum talking about Donovan Edwards and his visit and how important it was for the Buckeyes. Well, this next weekend, it's not slowing down for Ohio State. If this visit happens, like you said, it could be the start of a recruiting boom for the Buckeyes.
I just feel like there's this idea, and it's unbelievable considering what happened last summer with Bijan Robinson and Jalen Knighton, but there has to be this thought process at least happening inside of the Woody Hayes Athletic Center. You'd imagine where they're like, can we wait? Can we wait and see if they could get Travion Henderson and Donovan Edwards? Like, it's Ohio State, so that they obviously always feel confident and comfortable thinking that they can recruit against anyone and get anyone. But like, if you by any measure think about passing up Evan Pryor, you are all of a sudden putting yourself in a very precarious situation. Again,
I don't think that would happen.
I don't think it will.
I couldn't see them passing up on Evan Pryor because I'm not a scout. I'm not in the building, but I am in the building like 1 hour a week. But I'm not in the building in that capacity. But this kid is incredible. I am a huge fan of Evan Pryor. I think it's going to be really tough to get him out of North Carolina. I really do.
Yeah, now, we talked about it a few weeks ago. That if he leaves North Carolina, I think he's going to Ohio State. And I'm just, as I said, like with the recent visit to North Carolina, with the expectation that he can pop back in there anytime he wants to between now and the 17th and 18th of March when he's going to be in Columbus. If he returns to Ohio State for that visit, he is going to commit to Ohio State. That's just my opinion.
All right.
So what, right? That's just my thoughts, right?
There you have it, folks.
I mean, that's something that I think doesn't sound crazy, but, apparently there's this groundswell of support for him at North Carolina based on their recent success. And I understand that. I truly do. I just don't feel it. So,
you're not crazy.
No,
you're not crazy.
And I'm gonna double down here, Spence. I'm gonna double down. Double down. I'm gonna dub that. Double down.
Go ahead.
Troy Stellato is gonna go to Ohio State. So that's what I think. Okay, Troy Stellato, wide receiver, Fort Lauderdale, spent the weekend at Clemson along with Ja'Kalen Johnson, along with Jordan Hancock, along with Barrett Carter, not Travion Henderson, coincidentally, who I think is. I don't know that he's moving on from Clemson, but he's certainly wary of them at this point. They have a running back committed. They initially started recruiting Travion Henderson, the country's top-ranked running back, as a defensive back, and now they're telling him that he's an athlete and they can decide where to play him later, but I think it's pretty clear he wants to be a running back. So, he didn't go to Clemson this weekend. That's the bottom line. There's this thought, I guess, out there that Troy Stellato is super, super torn between Ohio State and Clemson. And we can talk about this until I'm red in the face, but I just don't buy it, and I don't know why exactly. I know he likes Clemson. I know he's a big fan of Dabo Swinney. I know he's a big fan of what they're doing at Clemson, winning games, winning championships, all that stuff. The atmosphere there is cool. Like I just feel like the connection between Brian Hartline, Keenan Bailey, and Troy Stellato and his family is different than the connection anywhere else. And I can't seem to buy it. And I've seen a lot of talk on Ohio State message boards over the weekend. People trying to, I think, justify this notion that Stellato may end up going elsewhere by saying things like, well, he's not that good anyway. We'd rather have Emeka Egbuka, blah, blah, blah. Like, Ohio State wants them both. Like, this is not a conversation of they feel like they have to have one or the other, or they're only going to get one or the other. Like, they want both of those guys. And
they want them in a package deal.
Right.
Basically.
And the fact is, I almost think, not to get too conspiratorial here, but like, you know, we were talking the other day about Donovan Edwards and Evan Pryor when they were at Georgia in the picture together, right?
Yeah.
I was perusing the Instagrams, and on Troy Stellato's Instagram are all his photos from Clemson. They visit there. And the only, he has a picture of himself. He's got a picture of him with Dabo Swinney. And then he has pictures of him with another recruit, and it's J.K. Johnson, right? Who is from St. Louis, who's never visited Clemson before. Who, I mean, I know all these kids talk to each other and get to know each other, but like those two are both heavily favored to end up at Ohio State. Despite all the talk about Stellato at Clemson, all the talk about how much he loves what they're doing, nobody has ever changed their crystal ball to Clemson for Stellato. And I think that has to be something that people need to pay attention to. And let's backtrack. And obviously I've talked about the crystal ball and how it doesn't always mean anything, but it means where the real direction of that recruitment is going. And no one's ever changed it, despite all the conversation about how much they think Stellato wants to go to Clemson. And isn't that weird?
It is kind of interesting.
Am I crazy?
Talks about how no, you're not crazy, Berm. Everybody likes to talk about how it's a two-man race, but even when he visits Clemson, a lot of times when guys visit, that crystal ball gets flipped by at least one guy.
Right. It happened today with Jordan Hancock. Steve Wiltfong, again, one of the most respected guys in the recruiting industry, put in a crystal ball pick for Jordan Hancock to Clemson. You'd think with multiple visits from Stellato to Clemson that somebody would do that, but nobody has.
It just goes back to the notion that we are an Ohio State and Clemson recruiting podcast because we talk about Ohio State versus Clemson so much.
Yeah, I'm all for it.
It's pretty crazy, how much these two schools have to go against each other, and then they get to they got to play in the Fiesta Bowl. They'll probably play in some sort of college football playoff game in 2020. There's my bold prediction for the episode if you want one.
Really went there. He went there, everyone.
So, it's just interesting. These two schools are always butting heads, but Troy Stellato is one of those interesting guys that, just never really says much, but has never really wavered from everybody thinking he's going to Ohio State. It's an interesting dynamic that he's carrying about his recruitment.
He's saying all the right things, and he should. I mean, the reality is Stellato is still looking at visiting Georgia. He's still looking at Texas, USC. Like, I don't think his recruitment is as narrowed down as we want to believe. Like, I don't think it's just Ohio State Clemson, because if it is, then he's either taking the other visits for fun, which would indicate that to me that a decision has basically already been made, or he's not really down to those two schools. And you can read that however you want. Just the way I see it, I don't feel like the only way that I see Troy Stellato not ending up at Ohio State is if Emeka Egbuka somehow decides in the next month or two that he wants to commit to the Buckeyes, and then try as they might to find a spot for Stellato, they don't have one. I think if this plays out where Stellato wants to commit in the next month or two, he keeps saying before August is his timeline, but the longer it goes, the more opportunity there is for Ohio State's roster to figure out how to add Egbuka and Stellato. Does that make sense?
Yeah, and the longer the recruitment goes, the longer we'll have to wait to see where the Buckeyes are going to stack up in a national perspective on team rankings by the end of the cycle. I think you'll know a lot about where that's going to end up because, everybody cares about that so much.
Yeah, I mean,
But I think
I don't want to get all proclamationally, but I feel like there's so much conversation, and I don't know who listens to this, who watches this, who cares about what I have to say, but don't fall into the trap of thinking that because Troy Stellato may go somewhere else that he's not that good, or that Ohio State doesn't want him, or that the Buckeyes have decided to move on from him. Like, that's just not the case. Like, Troy Stellato is a absolute top of the board priority for Ohio State and has been since September. Go.
If Troy Stellato goes somewhere else, it's because the Buckeyes just flat out got beat.
Right. Period. And this is what, again, we've talked about it over and over. Brian Hartline versus Tyler Grisham. City life in Columbus versus rural life in Clemson. Like, that's what it comes down to. And I get it that, Clemson does a great job. They're obviously the best program in the country right now in a lot of different facets, but I still think at the end of the day, knowing that they both have 2 receivers already committed, so everything's equal there, I just don't see it. I just don't see Stellato picking Clemson over Ohio State, all things being equal right now. So whatever. That's just my thought.
Right.
What else, Spencer? Travion Ford, there was a defensive end from St. Louis that we talked about a little bit on Lettermen Row over the last year. He did not visit this weekend as he was expected to. I think that Ohio State may be moving on there. I don't think that you'll see that one pick up any life. There was a lot of discussion in the last month about Ford and how he wanted to maybe commit, but I just don't think that the Buckeyes are looking at him as a defensive end at 6'2", 215 pounds. And they're not looking at another linebacker right now other than Barrett Carter. So I think it was just a situation that neither side, it didn't really add up at that point. So let's talk Jordan Hancock. What do you say? You want to talk Jordan Hancock?
Yeah, and can we delve in a little bit to Barrett Carter as well then?
Sure, why not? I like to delve. I'm a big fan.
They're kind of they go hand in hand, I guess.
They do, and obviously Jordan Hancock, when he was on Berminology 2 weeks ago, said that they're going to the same school, and that's great. We'll see if that ends up being true or not. Again, Hancock is a guy who, and I can only give my opinion based on what he told me on the show 2 weeks ago, right? Which is he hopes to have a decision by this summer, by the start of August. That's what he said. And then in the last 2 weeks now, we've seen article after article about Jordan Hancock where he's being quoted as saying a decision could come soon. And I think that this is a matter of people not understanding the relativity of time. So you want to delve, Spencer? Let's delve into space-time theory.
Hey, it's just a few short hours after we did this whole spring forward thing. So
yeah. Let's dive into space-time and relativity. I just don't think that soon means the same thing to one person as it does another. So I know that he loves Clemson. They were his dream offer. He went to there this past weekend. He was with Barrett Carter. Both of those guys posted their pictures on social media, and they look good in the all-in hashtag, whatever. I'm tempted to do this again. You know what? I'm doing it. Jordan Hancock's going to end up at Ohio State. That's my
Barrett Carter?
I don't think so. I think he's going to end up at Georgia. I think he's going to end up at Georgia. I know Ohio State wants him to, but I just don't know that despite all of the reasons Ohio State makes sense for him with him being a Midwest guy, despite the fact he's the only linebacker they're still recruiting, et cetera, so on and so forth. I just think that the Jordan Hancock recruitment is different based on the fact that Ohio State was really involved there before everyone else sort of sniffed what he was turning into. And I think that matters to him. I think Kerry Combs is obviously one of the best recruiters in the country and one of the best talent developers in the country. Again, Clemson's great. Like, they're fantastic at everything they're doing, but I just think that the relationship at Ohio State is better. And I'm going to tell you a team to watch out for with Jordan Hancock is Florida State. that's one that I keep hearing from people in that area, that he's actually really interested in the Seminoles, Alabama, Ohio State, Georgia, Clemson. I don't know where this idea that his decision is coming soon came from. Maybe I'm going to be completely wrong and end up with egg on my face and look like a moron. Maybe he commits by the time we're done recording this. Who the hell knows? But I'm just not reading it that way.
As of 8:38 p.m., he is not.
Sunday,
he is not committed.
Sunday, 8:38 p.m.
Yeah.
I'm just not reading it that way, and maybe I'm wrong. I know it's not really my style to go blank, point, blank, 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 but I just think that people are reading too much into words and timing of visits that maybe aren't relevant. Hancock is supposed to be at Ohio State on March 28th. He has his official visit scheduled for June. His whole plan has been to go take his official visits and commit by August. That's what he told me. I just don't think the soon means the same thing to him as it does to other people. And I guess while we're on that topic, I'm going to quadruple down. I'm quadrupling down, Spencer.
Quadruple down.
This is getting crazy. Quadruple down.
Berm, I think you're going to just have to predict the class for Lettermen Row. Somebody asked him for a full class prediction on Question of the Day this week, because I think he might do it this week.
If Ja'Kalen Johnson returns to Ohio State on March 28th like he's supposed to, and then comes back for the spring game 2 weeks later like he's supposed to, I think he's an Ohio State commitment. I think that the Buckeyes are looking at a 3-man cornerback class right now of Jordan Hancock, Ja'Kalen Johnson, and Jansen Dunn. That's what I think. Nobody cares.
All right.
You write it
I
down.
guess we're going to. I'm going to put it in some sort of Google Doc, spreadsheet, something to share with you, because that's what I do. You know me.
Yeah, I appreciate that.
I guess I'm going to end it by asking you this and really get the people fired up. Berm. Does Ohio State finish with the #1 class in the country this year? Is this finally the year?
No.
With the commits that you just listed off.
No, because here's the thing. Like, the way that Georgia and LSU and Bama, when it's all said and done, like, it's just different. And I don't know how it's going to work out. I'm sure it'll be close. I did a class prediction-ish on the Question of the Day last week, and Ohio State is on pace to having the best class in the history of college football recruiting, at least in the internet era. But somehow they'll finish second. I don't know. They always do. They did in 2013. That class had 6 first-round draft picks in it. So how do you beat that? 2017 class had 6 guys who were 5 stars, and it had J.K. Dobbins and Josh Myers, who were 5 stars throughout, and Tate Martell, who all finished as top 45 prospects, and that class finished second, and it still had 6 other 5-star players. How the hell does that happen? I don't know. I'm not a mathematician, but I know that this class is going to be really damn good for Ohio State, and it's a class that is going to rival the 2013 and 2017 classes in terms of on-paper potential. That's what I know.
And this isn't rocket surgery, but
not rocket surgery.
But you definitely have some proclamations that you've made.
Yeah, I mean, whatever. I don't normally do proclamations, but tonight I've given you 4. So let's just wrap it up there. Episode stuff, talking stuff. We'll call this the proclamation episode. The proclamation.
There you go.
Anyway, we're gonna get out of here because there's been too much, and I've given away too many secrets. I'm Jeremy Birmingham. That's Spencer Holbrook. This has been Talking Stuff, the Ohio State Recruiting Podcast, brought to you by Lettermen Row, and again, hosted by me, Jeremy Birmingham, sponsored by Buyers Auto. If you're looking for an auto, go to Buyers Auto. Spencer Holbrook, Jeremy Birmingham, Berm, Lettermen Row. You guys know all the deets. Talk to you next time.
Thanks for watching. Subscribe below to get the latest videos from Lettermen Row.
We got Letterman Live, we've got the practice report, we got rapid reaction. Hey, and we got Buckeye Q with Zach Bourne.
For sure. We got recruiting breakdowns with Berm. We got whatever you need. Ohio State football and Ohio State athletics, we've got you covered here at Lettermen Row.